Hey, this is Paul Barrett for Homeless Coalition and Homeless in America. I want to tell you a little story, and I'm not trying to be religious. I just want to relate this to Christians, Christian leaders, and the church in general, okay? It's the parable of the Good Samaritan, and everybody's probably heard this, but I want to talk about it a little bit and analyze it, okay? Parable of the Good Samaritan. I think it's in Luke 10:25 to 37, maybe. Okay, how does that story start? It started with a lawyer that was talking to Jesus, and he wanted to know how he could have eternal life, and Jesus said to him, well, what is it written? What's written in the book? What does it say? What is your reading? What is your understanding? And the attorney said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Jesus said to him, hey man, you're correct. Oh Lord. I don't know. Jesus had a lot of patience from all the stories and the type of people he dealt with, but he said, you're correct. You will have life. Then the lawyer, this is what the lawyers are like. And this reflection on our society even today is the same story. Lawyers. I don't have a lot of good things to say about them. Most politicians are lawyers, including DeSantis. He acts like he's some military guy that went into combat. He was a lawyer in the military. And most politicians are lawyers. And so what does the lawyer do? He asks Jesus, and who is your neighbor? Love your neighbor? Who's my neighbor? He wanted a way to escape this, And just like Bill Clinton said, depends on what the definition of is. Attorney's got a way of just circular, confusing thought patterns that don't make sense. Anyway, so Jesus didn't answer that with a definitive answer. What he did is that's where he gave the parable of the Good Samaritan. And Jesus was really, really smart. Well, okay. He said, there was a person, he came from, I don't remember what town he came from. He was going, I think, to Jerusalem, and a couple thieves jumped him, and beat him to death. They almost killed him. They wounded him, stripped off his clothing, took everything he had, and left him on the side of the road to die. Okay, so he's laying there dying. Just imagine that. And I want you to think about some of the homeless people. They are literally sometimes laying in the sidewalk or in a back field or behind a building dying. So let's put this in today's perspective. So this man was laying on the side of the road dying. A priest came by, saw the man. And what did the priest do? Did he go help the man? Nope. He went to the other side of the road. I want nothing to do with this guy, man. He just kept walking around. He walked away. And that's how people are today, including the church. They see a homeless person. It's, we don't want you on our property. We don't want you on our in our building. And they're pretty, if they see you, they're going to pass you by. They're going to walk to the other side of the road. And that's the church. And then another person came and saw the homeless man, and walked to the other side of the road and walked around him. That's what's happening with the homeless people. But now the Good Samaritan, someone from Samaria, the country of Samaria, he walked and saw the man laying there bleeding, probably without clothes, bleeding, dying. And what he did is he had sympathy. He saw a human being in deep need, and he walked to the man. He poured oil, he bandaged his wounds, cleaned his wounds, poured wine and oil or whatever they did in those days. He didn't just leave the man, okay? And today a lot of churches and Christians, if they did try to help, they'll go, I'll pray for you. Prayers ain't going to work in that situation, okay? That's why Jesus gave this story. Jesus didn't say, just pray, for your neighbor. He said to help. Okay, so not only did he bandage his wounds, and I think probably gave him something to eat if he needed, or water, or everything like that, but he took the man and put him on his own donkey and carried the man to a hotel. They called it an inn. And he paid for the man's room. And then he told the innkeeper, he said, he gave him a couple of denarii, or whatever their money exchange was. And he gave him money and said, here, take care of him until I get back. And then whatever it costs, I will give you more. That's totally full commitment. That is loving your neighbor as you love yourself. I don't know how many people understand that. You know, that's what Christianity is all about. That's what Jesus is all about. That's what the Bible is all about. And that's what the church is supposed to be all about. Not just seeing a person in need and say, let me pray for you. Oh, I'll pray for you. You know, especially when their prayers are probably, most of people, their prayers don't seem to be too effective because they're not living a righteous, right life in line with spiritual values. Yeah, they'll pray, but will they bandage your wounds? Will they clean your wounds? Will they clothe you? Will they put you in their vehicle, on their own donkey? Will they put you in their car? Will they see a homeless person and feed him and give him clothes and clean him, take care of his medical? Put them in their own vehicle and take them somewhere so they can have a place to stay and find housing. Are they doing that? Let me tell you, the church isn't. If the church did it, there'd be no homeless. If the nonprofits, the 501c3s and all these nonprofits that are claiming to help the homeless, if they did their job, there'd be no homeless. Now, I'm not criticizing every church. I'm not criticizing every nonprofit. But I'm across the board, I feel like they are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. And that's why we have a homeless crisis. It's a crisis. People are dying. They're dying. They're living miserable lives. The homeless people live 15 to 20 years shorter lifespan. These people are literally dying. And they're in suffering, they're in pain. Their lives are so downcast that every day is just another horrible day. You have no idea how bad it is. Now, not every homeless person reaches that critical point of where they're teetering on life and death, but it's a slow process. Today, there's probably over 1 million people that are homeless that are living in cars, vans, SUVs, RVs. They're up here, but they're slowly going down because they're getting in such a horrific condition that there's very few places where they can park. They have trouble paying gas, food. It's very hard. And to bring up this thing with Ron DeSantis, he's going to make that even harder. He's outlawing homeless. He's declared war on them. He's outlawing him, making it illegal to be homeless. And most homeless people they're not even to the point of living on the sidewalk. They're living in vehicles because they can't afford rent. They lost their house. They can't buy a house. They can't pay rent. We're in an economic crisis that's created this homeless crisis. Okay? It's becoming very hard for a lot of people just to cope with reality, because the middle class is being squeezed out. We're becoming a nation of rich and poor, and the poor is expanding, and that's what's creating the homeless debacle, the homeless crisis, the homeless problem. So if we apply that parable of the Good Samaritan, can you see how everyone who is working to help the homeless is actually failing? Can you see that if everybody did what they're called to do, what Jesus said to do, can you see how the homeless problem will be solved? Well, I don't want to preach. I just want to bring this point up because so many Christians just are not doing it. If a homeless person came into the church and sat next to them, they'd probably move over because, yeah, okay, maybe they smell, and maybe they even have a disease. But what did Jesus do? What did Jesus do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? This is Paul Barrett for Homeless in America and the Homeless Coalition. Peace and love. God bless. Peace out.